His jokes, riddles, and scraps of rhyme, and his endless digs at Lear's high-minded folly, ranging from mere derision to a sort of melancholy poetry, all thy other titles thou hast given away, that thou wast born with, for example, are like a trickle of sanity running through the play, a reminder that somewhere or other, in spite of the injustices, cruelties, intrigues, deceptions, and misunderstandings that are being enacted here, life is going on much as usual. In Tolstoy's Impatience with the Fool, one gets a glimpse of his deeper quarrel with Shakespeare. He objects, with some justification, to the raggedness of Shakespeare's plays, the irrelevancies, the incredible plots, the exaggerated language. But what at bottom he probably most dislikes is a sort of exuberance, a tendency to take not so much a pleasure as simply an interest in the actual process of life. It is a mistake to write Tolstoy off as a moralist attacking an artist. He never said that art, as such, is wicked or meaningless, nor did he even say that technical virtuosity is unimportant. But his main aim, in his later years, was to narrow the range of human consciousness. One's interests, one's points of attachment to the physical world and the day-to-day struggle must be as few and not as many as possible. Literature must consist of parables, stripped of detail and almost independent of language. The parables, this is where Tolstoy differs from the average vulgar Puritan, must themselves be works of art, but pleasure and curiosity must be excluded from them. Science also must be divorced from curiosity. The business of science, he says, is not to discover what happens, but to teach men how they ought to live. So also with history and politics. Many problems, for example the Dreyfus case, are simply not worth solving, and he is willing to leave them as loose ends. Indeed, his whole theory of crazes or epidemic suggestions, in which he lumps together such things as the Crusades and the Dutch passion of tulip growing, shows a willingness to regard many human activities as mere ant-like rushings to and fro, inexplicable and uninteresting. Clearly, he could have no patience with a chaotic, detailed, discursive writer like Shakespeare. His reaction is that of an irritable old man who is being pestered by a noisy child. Quote, "Why do you keep jumping up and down like that? Why can't you sit still like I do?" Unquote. In a way, the old man is in the right, but the trouble is that the child has a feeling in its limbs which the old man has lost. And if the old man knows of the existence of this feeling, the effect is merely to increase his irritation. He would make children senile, if he could. Tolstoy does not know, perhaps, just what he misses in Shakespeare, but he is aware that he misses something, and he is determined that others shall be deprived of it as well. By nature, he was imperious as well as egotistical. Well after he was grown up, he would still occasionally strike his servant in moments of anger, and somewhat later, according to his English biographer, Derek Leon, he felt, quote, "a frequent desire upon the slenderest provocation to slap the faces of those with whom he disagreed," unquote. One does not necessarily get rid of that kind of temperament by undergoing religious conversion, and indeed it is obvious that the illusion of having been reborn may allow one's native vices to flourish more freely than ever, though perhaps in subtler forms. Tolstoy was capable of abjuring physical violence and of seeing what this implies, but he was not capable of tolerance or humility. And even if one knew nothing of his other writings, one could deduce this tendency towards spiritual bullying from this single pamphlet. However, Tolstoy is not simply trying to rob others of a pleasure he does not share. He is doing that, but his quarrel with Shakespeare goes further.